Okay, hello everyone once again. It's time to move on to the second part of our session, which are the Greek numbers. Of course, there are no Greek numbers. We're going to learn how to pronounce and write the numbers in the Greek language. We're going to be learning how to pronounce and write down numbers all the way from 0 to 1000. And then we're going to be talking about how the ordering of numbers is done in Greek. Actually, let's move on to the next slide so we can see the contents in more detail. Okay, so let's see the contents in more detail. What are we going to learn today? We're going to learn how to write and pronounce numbers from 0 to 9, move on to 10 and all the way up to 99, then from 100 all the way up to 1000. Then after we learn those bits, we're going to be talking about how we depict order or the row of things in Greek, because it's a bit different than we do it in the English language. And after that, we're going to be seeing two cases where we might use numbers in our everyday lives, such as giving a phone number to or asking for somebody's phone number when we are in Greece. And the second case would be saying the price on stuff, asking the price for things we want to buy or we want to sell. So in Greek, the word numbers is called numera. Numera, as you can see here. Of course, if you've gone over the first part of the session, you know how to read this on your own. So N-U-M-E-R-A, numera. Okay, which might sound familiar because there are a lot of English words that use the Greek equivalent, like numeric. Okay, this comes from the Greek word numera. So let's see and begin. And first we'll go over the numbers from 0 to 9. The Greek numbers from 0 all the way to 9. Now we have separated this part on its own because these 10 digits will be the basis for all the future numbers we're going to be saying from now on. So it is very important for you to get them down and learn them by heart. It's the foundation of everything regarding numerics. So it's important to be comfortable with those basics in the beginning. Let's begin then. Let me get out my laser pointer so it can be easier for us to go through the numbers. The first number is 0, which in Greek is mηδέν. 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 Ένα, δύο, δύο, τρία, τρία, τέσσερα, τέσσερα. Number 4 has two S's next to each other. Okay, τέσσερα. Πέντε, πέντε, έξι, έξι, επτά, επτά, οχτώ, οκτώ. This number here, you might hear it both as οκτώ or οχτώ. It's both of these versions are correct. We're going to be focusing on this one, οκτώ, which is the official version of the number, and 9, which is εννέα, εννέα. You might hear this as εννιά, εννιά, instead of εννέα, but εννέα is the official version that we teach. I'm just letting you know that you might hear these two as οκτώ and εννιά. So let's go from the top. Μηδέν, ένα, δύο, τρία, τέσσερα, πέντε, έξι, επτά, οκτώ, εννέα. Okay, now that we have gone through the first 10 digits, it's important to move on to higher sets of numbers. Now you may want to ask me, why do we go from 10 to 19 instead of 10 all the way to 100? And that is because the way that we write the numbers from 10 to 19 is a good basis of how we're going to be numbering and spelling out the words higher than that in the future. So let's go through all the numbers from 10 all the way to 19. Now let's begin. 10 is δέκα, δέκα. 11 is έντεκα, έντεκα. 12 is 12. 10, 11, 12. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Now, if you have listened closely to the way that I was pronouncing these words, what you may have noticed is what I have written down for you here on this text on the side, and that is all the numbers from 10 to 19 except 11 and 12, if you may have heard, are the number 10 plus the second number of the digit. Let's see, for example, 13. 13 is 10, which is 10, and 3, which is 3. So it's like saying 10, 3, 10, 4, 10, 5, 10, 6, 10, 7, 10, 8, 10, 9. Okay, so 14, 10, 5, 10, 6. Okay, so all the numbers are a combination of 10 plus the second digit of the number. Now, the only exception to that rule, as I've written you down here on the right, is 11 and 12, which you have to remember by heart. 11 is 11, 11, and 12 is 12. So let's do one more time from 10 all the way to 19. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Now it's time for our first exercise. So as you can see, we have a set of numbers, and what we're going to try to do is try and to say those numbers in Greek and write them down. So they are all the way from 0 to 19, which is what we have learned so far. So let's try on your own, and then I will show you which are the correct responses. So the first one, let me get my laser pointer out, is the number 11, which in Greek is edeka. Edeka. Okay, this is how you write down edeka. Then we have 8, which is okto. Okto. 16. As we said, it's a combination of 10, 10, and 6. Έξι. 16. 3. 7. 10. And finally, 15. So, 11, 8, 16, 3, 7, 10, 15. I suggest you spend a few minutes creating flashcards so you can practice the numbers all the way from 0 to 19. Now it is time for us to move on to the next set of numbers and learn how to pronounce them properly in Greek. And this section is devoted to the numbers from 20 all the way to 99. Okay, so the reason why we are starting from 20, as I told you before, is, as you can see, let me take my laser pointer, is that we tend to follow the same rule of, as we said in the tenths before, okay, that, for example, 16 is 10 and 6, 10, 6 together. It's the same kind of rule for the rest of the numbers all the way up to 99. So let's see a preview on how the 20s look like. So 20 in Greek is 20, 20. So the way we're going to follow the numbers following 20, like 21, 22, and 23, is the same as we saw in the tenths. So we're going to be saying 21, 22. It's the same as we do it in English. Okay, so 20, 21, 22, 23. Okay, and in the similar way, we move all the way to 30, right? So 20, 21, 22, 23. Let me get my marker out. Okay, 24, 25, 26. I apologize for my handwriting. 27, okay, 27, 28, 29. It's exactly the same as we do it for the numbers from 10 to 19. It's the same kind of logic. So what I have written down for you here is how we move on. You know, we jump all the way from 20 to 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, and 90. And the logic behind this is that 32 follows exactly the same logic as 22. So it's going to be 30 plus the number 2 in Greek, and so on and so forth. So let's see how we call the numbers all the way from 20 to 90. So as we said, 20 is 20. 20. 30 is 30. 30. 40. 40. 50. 50. 60. 60. 70. 70. 80. 80. And 90. So we have 10, which is 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, and 90. So let's say we want to say the number 42. Okay, 42. It's going to be the 40 on the first half and the 2 on the second half of the word. So it's going to be 42. 42. Okay, if we want to say 65, for example, okay, we have to say 60 and the word 5. So, 65. 65. What about 99? 99 is 90, which is 90, plus 9, which is 9. So 99 is 99. 99. Okay, so we're going to do a similar exercise as the one we did before, where I have given you some numbers, more complicated this time, right? It's all the way from 10 to 99. And I want you to try and say the words, say the numbers out loud in Greek, and on a piece of paper try to write them down before we see the correct answers together. So let's see which are the correct answers. Now, the first number is the number 55, which in Greek is 55. This one is 50, 50, 50, and this is 5, 5, 55. 43 is 43, 43. 40, which is 40 plus 3, 3, 43. 28 is 28, 28, 28. 94, we saw an example previously with the 90s. 94, 90, 90, and 4, which is 4. Okay, 94. Then 37 is 37, 37, 37. Then we have 62, which is 62, 62, 62. And last but not least, we have 81, which is 81, 81. Let's do it one more time from top to bottom. 55, 43, 28, 94, 37, 62, 81. The next step for us would be to start learning the numbers from 100 all the way to 1000. Now, what I want to tell you is that, as you can see here, there's no need to worry, because the only extra thing that we must learn in this case is how to pronounce and write down the hundreds, okay? Because then the rest of the number is what we learned previously, okay? So for example, 255 would be 250 and 5. And 55 we learned previously, so the only thing we need to learn to be able to count all the way to 1000 are these 10 numbers, the hundreds. So let's go through them then. Number 100 in Greek is called εκατό. 200 is 200. 300 is 300. 400 400. 500 500. 600 600. 700 700. 800 800. You may hear it both as 800 and 800. 800 is the correct version, but we say them both in spoken language, okay? And then 900, 900. And 1000 is 1000. Now, the thing that I want you to notice is, let me take my marker. We have the same ending to all the words. You can see that this section here, kosia, is the same in all the numbers all the way to 900. The first half of the word, let me take another color, is this letter. So besides εκατό, which is its own word, 200 comes from δύο, which is 2. 300, you can see here the number 3. 400, tetra is something that comes from the number 4. Tetra is maybe something you have also heard in English in some terms, but they are very specific. Then 500, 500, pende is the number. 5, 600, 6, 700, 700, 7, 8, 9. Okay. So let's run through them one more time. Let me take my laser pointer. Try to repeat after me. 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800, 900, 1000. Now on the next slide, as you can see here, I have written a small n, after 100, εκατό, and I will explain to you on the next slide why I have written it down. So let's see what we'll see on the next slide. Now the reason that I had written down this n at the end of εκατό, εκατόν, is because only for the numbers that go from 100 to 199, okay, so let me write it down. So from let me change the color to make it more friendly. So from 100 to 199, okay, I apologize once again for my writing style. So from 100 to 199, as you will notice from what I have written down here on the side, besides 100, when it's on its own, εκατό, we don't have an n after the word. However, when we want to say the rest of the numbers from 101 all the way to 199, instead of 101, which would be 101, instead of saying 101, we say 101, 101, 102, 103, 110. 110, as you can see, is 110. Okay, 110, 111, 122, right? 100, which is 100, 20, which is 20, and 2, which is 2. 122, 125. And just to make it more specific, let's say, for example, we want to say 157. We would say 157. So it would be the combination of 100, which is 100 with an N, as we said, okay, plus 50, which is 50, so 150 plus 7, which is 7. So altogether, it would be 157. Now, let's move on to the next slide, where we're going to practice the numbers from 100 to 999. Okay, this is the practice round, which means that you are seeing the answers already, and the next slide is going to be a small exercise about how we write down the numbers that we learned. So let's see some examples of numbers that have three digits, okay, so that they go all the way from 100 to 999. So first we have 723. As you can see here, I have written it down on the parentheses, as we said in the previous slide. 723 is the combination of 720 and 3. So in Greek, it would be 723. Altogether, 723. 723. The next one, 884. 884. 884. 880 and 4. 884. 257. 257. 257. Here, 100, you can see the N, 172. 172. 172. 240. Notice here that when the digit ends in 0, okay, 0, it counts as 200 plus 40, okay, 40, which is 40. So it altogether is 240, 240. Then 999, okay, the largest of the bunch would be 999. This is the other version that I told you about. You might see it as 9, or as we said, 9, which is written like this. 9. Okay, so 999 or 999. It's exactly the same thing. Okay. Then we have 436. 436. 436. 605. 605, which is 600 plus 5. 5. 605. And the final one is 528. 528. Take some time to practice on your own, because on our next slide we'll be doing a quick exercise. It's now time to do the exercise. So what I want you to do is try and write down the following numbers and try saying them, pronouncing them out loud in Greek. Take as much time as you want, and we'll be going over the correct answers together. Let's see which are the correct answers. The first number is 193. What you should have written down in Greek is 193. 193. Next we have 948. In Greek, 948. 948. Then we have 40. 40 in Greek is 40. 40. Then we have 177. 177. Please make note of the N at the end of 100. 177. 177. Then we have 360. Okay. Which in Greek is 360. 360. The next number is 65, which is 65. 65. Then we have number 12, 12. 12. And 425, which would be in Greek 425. 425. Now, we must quickly take a look at how we count the thousands. And we won't spend as much time as we did in the other sections, but it is extremely important to you to learn how to do this counting, especially if you want to say the year that we currently have, like 2023, or your year of birth. For example, you were born in 1978, or any other larger number that you may need to use in Greece, like your salary. Okay. Now we learned what 1000 was in Greek previously, and it is hilia, hilia. Now what you will be seeing all the way from 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9000 is, as you say it in English, you have the number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and the second half of the word is 1000. Okay, so here 2000 in Greek is 2,000, which translates to 2,000s, 2,000s, 2,000. And as you can see, we then move on to counting up the thousands. 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, 8,000, and 9,000. Now, as you can see, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, the first half of the word is the same as the number we have learned. So 9, 8, 7, 6, and 5, and 2, 2. The only difference that you may see here, is for the 3 and the 4,000, where technically we should be saying 3,000 and 4,000, but instead we say 3 and 4. This is because in Greek, as we will see later on, the nouns have genders, okay? So the noun can be masculine, it can be feminine, and it can be neutral. So because the word thousand, χιλιάδα, is female, is a feminine noun, we have to change the number in the front to match it. Okay, and this only happens for 3 and 4. Do not worry yourself about the theory behind it, just learn it by heart, just memorize it. That for 3,000 we say 3,000, 3,000, and for 4,000 we say 4,000. So let's go from the top. 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, 8,000, and 9,000. Okay, and here I have written down some examples of how you might be bumping into the thousands in everyday life. And the first one is today's date. Okay, so the year we're currently running through is 2023. So if we want to say that in Greek, it would be 2023. So 2000 is 2000, okay, as we saw before. 20 is 20, and 3 is 3. So when you put it together, 2023. 2023. Let's say you were born on the year 1978. Okay, how you say this year would be 1978. So you say 1000, which is the 1000, and then this number, we already know how to say it from the previous section. So 1978. Another example is 1978. So 1000, 1150, 150. 1150. And then I put this year because it's a historical date for the Greek Revolution. You might be bumping into this date. And if you want to say it in Greek, it would be 1821. 1821. 1821. So if we add everything together from what we have learned in the past half hour, you should be able to write down and say out loud all the numbers all the way from 0, okay, which is miden, all the way to 9,999. If we want to try and say this, take some time and think about how this number would sound in Greek. And 9,999 in Greek would be 9.999. 9.999. Okay, let's move on to the next chapter for today's lesson. And it is what we briefly mentioned before. We're going to briefly go over what we call ordinal Greek numbers. So how do we denote the row or the order with which people, things, places come into? So this is what we're going to be going over now. So let's briefly read the text here. It's something that I told you about previously when we were talking about the thousands. Ordinal numbers in Greek are adjectives. So, for each ordinal number, there are three versions, three variations of it, showcasing the different endings, okay, endings of the word, depending on whether the reference noun is masculine, feminine, or neutral. So that's the thing in Greek. It's similar in French. Nouns in the Greek language have a gender, okay? They're either masculine, feminine, or neutral. For example, dog or skilos. Skilos. In Greek, dog is a masculine noun. So we use the masculine form of adjectives when we describe a dog. A cat, on the other hand, is a female, a feminine noun, right? I gata. Gata, the cat in Greek is gata. So we would use the feminine version of the number, right, to describe cats, one cat or many cats. And for the neutral, we could say, for example, the table. The table in Greek is trapezi. The table is a neutral noun, which means that we use the neutral form of the ordinal number to describe it, or the adjective in this case. So let's see how we talk about the row in Greek. Now, I have here all the way to 14th, and then I'm gonna show you the hundreds. So let's begin. Now, the first we say protos, protos, protos. You can see P, R, O, T, O, and S, the final S, as you can see here in the parenthesis as well. Protos. Protos is the masculine form of the adjective, as we said before. So if you want to say that this man finished first, we would say that he finished protos. If you want to talk about a woman or a lady finishing up first on a race, for example, you would say Maria finished proti, proti. So instead of O and S, after the T, you put this E, proti. I will try to write it down using my pen, but it's a bit difficult since I'm on the computer. So if you want to talk about a female, a feminine noun, as we said, you would write like this. Proti. So protos for the masculine, proti for the feminine, and proto, proto, if the noun you have, okay, is neutral. So p, r, o, t, o. Protos, proti, proto. Okay, and this is exactly how we do the rest of the order. So let's see. Second, we say δεύτερος, δεύτερος. So δεύτερος, δεύτερη, δεύτερο. Okay, the three versions. Τρίτος, τρίτη, τρίτο. Τέταρτος, τέταρτος. Τέταρτη, τέταρτο. For fifth place, we have πέμπτος, πέμπτος. So πέμπτος, πέμπτη, πέμπτο. Έκτος, sixth, έκτος. Έκτη, έκτο. Έβδομος. You can see here you have the v and the like εβδομήντα, like we saw before. Έβδομος, έβδομος, έβδομη, έβδομο. Όγδοος, here we have a double O, so we drag the O sound. Όγδοος, όγδοος, όγδοη, όγδοο. Okay. Ένατος, ένατη, ένατο. Δέκατος, δέκατη, δέκατο. Ενδέκατος, ενδέκατος, ενδέκατη, ενδέκατο. Δωδέκατος, δωδέκατη, δωδέκατο. Δέκατος τρίτος. If this reminds you of something, it's the same as we said when we say about the number 13 on its own. If you remember, the number 13 is δεκατρία, δεκατρία. So here we combine 10th, which is here, right? Δέκατος, and third, which we know is τρίτος. So it's a combination of 10th and third. So δέκατος τρίτος. The female version, the feminine version, would be to make both words their feminine version. So δεκατή τρίτη, δεκατή τρίτη. And for the neutral nouns, δέκατο τρίτο. Okay, 14th, δέκατος τέταρτος. So 10th, δέκατος, where's the 10th here? And τέταρτος, which is fourth. Τέταρτος. So it's a combination again. Δέκατος τέταρτος. Δέκατη τέταρτη. Δέκατο τέταρτο. And the reason that I stopped here is because 15th, 16th, 17th, and 18th, and 19th all follow the similar logic to these two numbers here. Okay, so 15th would be δέκατος. So 15, let me write it down. 15 would be δέκατος πέμπτος. 16 would be δέκατος έκτος. 17th, right? 17th. Apologize for my handwriting again. 17th would be δέκατος έβδομος. 18th would be δέκατος όγδος. And 19th would be δέκατος ένατος. So, the next set of numbers regarding order, ordinal, the row, would be to go over the hundreds, okay? It's a 20th, 30th, 40th, 50th, all the way to 100th. So let's go over them, and then we will do some examples. Okay, so 20th in Greek is ikostos. If you remember, 20 in Greek is ikoshi. So you can see the first half is kind of similar. So 20th is ikostos. Ikostos, ikosti for the feminine nouns, and ikosto for the neutral nouns. 30th, triakostos, triakostos, triakosti, triakosto. 40th, tessarakostos. You can see the number tessera. Tessarakostos, tessarakostos, tessarakosti, tessarakosto. 50th, πεντηκοστός, 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 πεντηκοστή, πεντηκοστό. 60th, εξικοστός, εξικοστός, εξικοστή, εξικοστό. 70th, εβδομικοστός. You can see εβδομήντα, kind of the 70 coming up in here. We saw before. Εβδομικοστός, εβδομικοστή, εβδομικοστό. 80th is ογδοηκοστός. Ογδό is kind of similar to οκτώ, 8. Or ογδόντα, 80, as we saw before. Ογδοηκοστός, ογδοηκοστή, ογδοηκοστό. 90th, ενενηκοστός, ενενηκοστός. Ενενηκοστός, ενενηκοστή, ενενηκοστό. And finally, for 100th, we say εκατοστός, εκατοστός. You can see the number εκατό in here, εκατό. So altogether, εκατοστός, εκατοστή, εκατοστό. Now, I'm just giving you the hundreds because the logic of creating the numbers is similar to the one we saw in the previous slide. So for example, let's say if we want to say that this person is number 26, he's the 26th on the list, okay, 26th, how would we go about pronouncing this? So we would say ikostos, and what is the sixth in Greek? Ektos. So together, ikostos, ektos, if that person is a man. If the person is a woman, we say ikosty ekti, ikosty ekti. And if it's the 26th thing, let's say in a box, we say ikosto ekto. If somebody is, let's say the row of something is 78, okay, 78th. We say that it is, he is, εβδομηκοστός, εβδομηκοστός, όγδος. Εβδομηκοστός, όγδος. If we talk about a feminine noun, εβδομηκοστή, όγδοη, and if it's a neutral noun, εβδομηκοστό, όγδοο. Take some time to memorize them and maybe try doing some examples on your own. The most important thing for you is to remember the basic hundreds and how we create these numbers and how we split them into these two sections here. And then you should be able to know all the way from 1 to 100. We already went through this, but let's see it in a written form. Okay, so we said that we have here 3 orders, okay, first, second, and third. These are 3 people running a marathon, let's say, for example. Okay, so this first sentence says that George finished first. Okay, George, who is a male, right? So when we want to explain his position that he came first, we have to use the masculine form of the word first in Greek. So, George, or Yorgos, Yorgos is the equivalent name, finished is τερμάτισε, which means he finished the race, basically. Ο Γιώργος τερμάτισε, and then comes his row with which he finished the game, the race. Πρώτος. Ο Γιώργος τερμάτισε πρώτος. Similarly, if we talk about Maria, we use the feminine form of the word second, which is δεύτερη. Η Μαρία τερμάτισε δεύτερη. If you talk about a child, which in Greek is a neutral noun, then we use the neutral form of the word. So, το παιδί τερμάτισε τρίτο. Πρώτος, because we talk about a male. Δεύτερη, because it's a feminine noun. And τρίτο, because the child in Greek is a neutral noun. Now, the final thing we're going to be focusing on today is how we use numbers in our everyday life. Previously, we saw one of the most important things which would be to describe our year of birth, right? Or the salary we take, or some important dates in the Greek calendar, for example. But we will go over 2 more examples in this section. And the first one would be, how do we give someone our cell phone or our home number, or how do we ask people for their number? Okay. And the second one would be how to say the prices of things in euros, of course, because Greece is a member of the European Union, which means that we use the euro as a form of currency. So let's see first how we would give someone our cell phone or home number. So how do we give someone our cell phone number or ask for it? I think the easiest way is to give or ask one digit at a time. Okay, I think the phrase that we should learn first is my phone number is. My phone is, we say in Greek. So in Greek, you would say my phone is, and then you would continue saying the number. Okay, so in Greek, my phone is, we say it as το τηλέφωνο μου είναι. Το τηλέφωνο μου είναι my phone. Phone is τηλέφωνο, telephone. That's where telephone comes from. Τηλέφωνο. Το τηλέφωνο μου είναι, is. Το τηλέφωνο μου είναι. And then you go on to saying, right, the numbers one by one. So let's say that this is our cell phone number. Okay? So I suggest you say, το τηλέφωνο μου είναι 698 2 3 3 7 2 1 9. Okay, you have it here in Greek, and underneath you have the romanization, okay, the Latin characters of the word, just to help you out a bit with pronunciation. So, το τηλέφωνο μου είναι 698 233 7219. All mobile phones in Greece start with 6 and 9. Okay. However, that's the thing now, though. There's a difference between how we learn language officially and how Greek people or any kind of people actually speak their native language. So if you ask a Greek person to tell you their phone number, they will almost never say it to you one digit at a time. Usually Greek people, when you ask for their phone number, is that they would combine parts of the numbers and say them in groups. For example, this phone number, let me use one of the pens so we can make it a bit easier. So this phone number, okay, which we would say as 698233721 might be given to you as 6982, which is like 6982. 6982 337, so 337, 337, 2, 19. So it's very common in Greek to give some of the numbers in groups. So if you might hear somebody say their phone number is 6982 337 219. Now, if you have spent some time getting used to the numbers and how they sound, especially when they sound quickly, because Greeks have a tendency to speak quite fast, I think that if that happens and you are confused and you do not understand what the number is, I suggest we use the following phrases so you can ask the person that is giving you the number to say the digits, okay, one by one. So, can you tell me the digits, the numbers one by one? In Greek, we would say here, μπορείτε να μου πείτε τα νούμερα ένα-ένα? Could you tell me the numbers, so νούμερα, ένα-ένα, one by one? Μπορείτε να μου πείτε τα νούμερα ένα-ένα? Μπορείτε να μου πείτε τα νούμερα ένα-ένα? And it's the polite version because this is more advanced, of course, but Greek has a different system of when you talk to somebody who is a friend of yours, how you talk to your boss. The verbs change a bit, so this is the polite version of asking for somebody to give you the digits one by one. So, μπορείτε να μου πείτε τα νούμερα ένα-ένα? I suggest that if you have a Greek phone number or if you have your own cell phone number, that you write it down on a piece of paper and try and pronounce it in Greek using both digits one by one, as in this example, but also try to give it in groups and you are one step closer to sounding like a native Greek person. So let's move on to the next and final example in today's presentation, which is how we read and say the prices on products or things we want to buy or sell. Now, as we said before, Greece is part of the European Union, right? Which means that we are using euros as a form of currency. And this is the symbol, right? Euros. So, saying the price is very, very easy for us for two reasons. Firstly, okay, most things have price tags on them, so you won't have to ask for the price most of the time, because usually there's a price tag on everything. But the good thing is that the prices are pronounced exactly the same like the numbers, the simple numbers we learned previously. Okay, so if we want to say that something costs, let's ignore the example here and let's do our own. Let's say that this, for this sandwich and coffee, I have to pay 10 euros. Okay, we say the number 10, which is deka. Deka, we learned this in the beginning, right? Deka. And the Greek word for euro is evro. Evro. You can see it here in its Romanized form, evro. So this costs 10 euro. Another example, let's say you buy something more expensive and it's like 328 euros. Okay, I apologize for the horrible handwriting again. 328. So we would say that this costs 328. We know this number already. 328 euro. Okay, so let's see the example here. The meaning of the phrase we're going to see is that, let's say this dress, let's go with dress. This dress costs 35 euros. In Greek, it would be that αυτό το φόρεμα, αυτό is this, αυτό. Dress is φόρεμα. Αυτό το φόρεμα κοστίζει, κοστίζει 35 ευρώ, 35 euros. Αυτό το φόρεμα κοστίζει 35 ευρώ. This dress costs 35 euros. And of course, you can ask for some things, for the price of something in this way. Let's see the meaning. How much does this cost? The romanization. Πόσο κάνει αυτό? There are two ways you can ask for the price. Πόσο κάνει αυτό? Or πόσο κοστίζει αυτό? Πόσο κάνει αυτό is the translation, how much is it? Πόσο κοστίζει αυτό is how much does it cost? Okay, that's the difference between the two, but we use both alternating between them. There's no difference. So you can either say πόσο κάνει αυτό, πόσο κοστίζει αυτό, and the salesperson will respond and say αυτό κοστίζει, whatever the price may be, 35 ευρώ, 10 ευρώ, 328 ευρώ. Okay, so this is how we read numbers regarding the price tags. I think it's quite easy because we know all the numbers thus far. So let's do a final recap and I will say goodbye to you on the next slide. Now, let's do a final recap of what we've done so far. Now, we saw a lot of numbers, starting with the basic ones, right, from 0 to 9, and then moving up to 10 to 19, 20 to 29, 99, and then 100 to 1,000. Then we had an additional area here where we talked about how do we count above 1,000, so 1,000 to 9,000, okay, and this is important for us to know because we will have to describe our year of birth, for example. Okay. Then we talked about ordinal numbers and how do we depict the row of things, the order in which they come. And then we covered the everyday use of numbers in a Greek person's daily life, which would be asking the price of things, or for example, giving out our cell phone or asking for somebody's phone number instead. I suggest you take some time to go over the PowerPoint and do the exercises and repeat the words after me. And then go on to the course online and try to fill out and complete the exercises we have prepared for you that have to do with the numbers, the Greek numbers. So thank you so much for your time, and I wish you the best of studying. See you later.